Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL Show. My name is Shane Brennan. Thank you very much for joining our series of reactions to the NFL International Series. Myself and Brian already spoke about the game in Madrid, which is taking place between the Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons. And now we're looking ahead towards the London games, the first of which we are now have been confirmed. There's going to be a battle between the Washington Commanders and the Indianapolis Colts, who once again are playing internationally, having done so in Berlin last year, and what was the last win of the season before things kind of fell off the wagon. But of course, with Daniel Jones and other pieces still in that squad, and we're hoping Sauce Gardner may finally get a bit of good form after his blockbuster trade that happened just before Berlin last year. Now he's coming to London against the Washington Commanders early on in the season. We know there's two teams with big fan bases here. The Colts probably coming into this needing to get an early start to the season. But what a way to kick off the Tottenham games, because there's been some complaints about the London games in the last couple of years that they haven't just quite had as much juice as they used to. But Commanders Colts, that's a pretty good way to start in my book.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree, Shane. I'm interested to see Quinbet will release the odds for the international games quite quickly, as do all the various other bookmakers. It'd be interesting to see who is actually the favourite for this game because it kind of feels like a very evenly balanced game. Bearing in mind, Commanders are coming off a really rough season, and the Colts for large parts of last season were the talk of the season in terms of looking like they could do damage in the AFC. Obviously, it spiraled out of control there after injuries, as you touched on there, not winning another game after Germany. Jayden Daniels and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has won in Tottenham as Giants quarterback against the Packers a couple of years ago, but he also has a fantastic record. One of the good things he did walk away from the Giants, from his time with the Giants, was he had a really good record against the Commanders. He always found ways to beat the Commanders or the Washington football team as it was then. For some reason, no matter all the different frailties he had in his time in New York, one thing he was reasonably consistent on was beating the Commanders. So I'd imagine he'll be coming into this game as the Colts quarterback if he does return from the injury. And the Colts team that will have a point to prove after last season, and you touched on it there, made some big changes, brought in Sauce Gardner with a trade on the deadline, and the trade deadline, because they felt they were on a crest of a wave and going to the playoffs. I would expect that they will be quietly confident that they can run it back essentially and have a good season and be in the mix for the AFC South. For the Commanders, it's an interesting season. I think Dan Green could be one who is on the hot seat. But they've done some nice things in the offseason in terms of free agency and the draft.
Yeah, the Commanders, who, let's not forget, also played internationally last year in Spain. But I feel like that version of the Commanders can be very different to what we see here, just based purely on injury and on expectation. Because, there was so much hype coming into them last year after making the NFC Championship game the year previous. And then it just fell flat with various injuries. It'd be great to see all the pieces come back here. We know Sonny Styles, the 7th overall pick, is going to be in that defense. Dan Quinn is going to take a more hands-on approach when it comes to how he manages the Commanders defense. And this is going to be coming at a time of year, week 5, I believe, that it's going to be quite pivotal in terms of where the Commanders go, especially considering the very competitive division that they're going to be in. And like these close wins against teams like the Colts, and it's funny, like I was sitting back yesterday trying to get a sense as to who the team might be. And, you hear so many different things over the course of the week. I was just looking at all the home opponents they have, and they're all really, really good games, but they're all very difficult opponents. And that's why beating teams like the Colts, who may be, as you were saying, a difficult force to predict, because you were saying you're not quite sure what the odds are going to be. But look at the opponents they have to face at home. This is just the home opponents. Obviously, Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, Seahawks, Falcons, Rams, Texans, Colts, and Bengals. Like, there isn't a bad game, and there isn't an easy game in that. They take a home game across the Atlantic, playing against a Colts team who are going to have a significant fan base in there. As much as we know, there's a lot of Washington fans in the UK. There's a lot of Indianapolis fans, particularly in Germany, who we know will make the journey to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The stadium is going to be electric. It's going to be alive. We know we always say it's probably the best stadium that the NFL plays in every year, or definitely up there. And that's just not the sort of UK and Ireland bias coming through. The Tottenham Stadium is genuinely world class. But it is going to be key, I think, defensively in particular for Washington to try and shut things down, not give Daniel Jones and co much room to move. We saw last year how the Colts run game, if their offensive line is given that extra half a second, Jonathan Taylor can completely tear teams apart. But if you front up, and again with Sonny Styles, linebackers going to be key in this. If you front up and pressure up quickly, you can keep them quiet. And God, there's so much in this that's going to keep it very, very tight, and it's going to make it a very exciting game. And I just hope that injuries don't play another plaguing role by the time we get to Commanders Colts, as happened at various points for both of these seasons last year.
Yeah, I think we might be okay in that aspect. It was the 4th of October, so it was actually week 4, and which they're suggesting this game be played. And yeah, you touched on it there, Sonny Styles, but more so about the question mark for me will be, what's this Commanders defense going to look like? Because Dan Quinn towards the back end, I think it might have been coincided when he went to Madrid and we were at that game in the Bernabeu, in which he took back play calling as defensive coordinator. He's a defensive minded head coach. So it'll be interesting to see, does that transition into this season? What type of Commanders defense we see? Yeah, I like your point around the schedule, because I also looked at it and I actually thought, in a weird way, and you can never judge an NFL season. I mean, there's no point even trying to make selections this far out, but this looked like one of the more winnable games in which they'd have at home. So you would think maybe they were open to playing another team in London, where they would actually might think it will lean on us because it's more of a neutral venue, that we might have a better opportunity to win against a more stellar team. But the Colts of the team has been selecting, and in fairness, I think over the course of the last 3 or 4 days, I mean, you speculate there about different games and different aspects of what would be decided as part of the international program. I think it's come quite abundantly clear over the course of the last few days. The AFC South had a huge part to play in this year's series, and it's going to consist in what we're going to see at Wembley as well, which is separate in a separate discussion for another podcast. I am excited to see the Colts because they've maintained their best wide receiver. There's talk of him leaving in free agency. They give him the deal. They give Daniel Jones the deal. Jonathan Taylor's a great running back in his own right. And you saw them firsthand in Berlin. I mean, it was a high scoring game. I'd like to think this is the type of game that would attract a crowd and an audience into Tottenham come October. Reasonably good weather, and we see a compelling game to start the series off.
I'm very much looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to seeing the team from America's capital come to the UK's capital 250 years after old General Washington gave the Brits a good beating and all the rest. I'm sure that will fill up many columns as people try to find some sort of a interesting way to talk about this game. For now, that is the first of the Tottenham games. We'll be talking about the other London games, as well as the game in France and in Munich, in other podcasts in your feed today. So keep an eye out for those. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.